President Pranab Mukherjee made his first speech to members of the 16th Lok Sabha at a joint session of Parliament in Central Hall just a moment ago, and we're going to play out for you the salient excerpts of that speech that lasted just over 45 minutes. In it, the President laid down his agenda for the new government. He said Narendra Modi's biggest challenge would be lifting India's millions of poor from poverty. To assist them, he outlined a number of other schemes ranging from containing inflation to improving access to health services, improving the quality and quantity of education and gender equality. On the economy, he said the government would focus on helping industries that create jobs and infrastructural assets to boost the GDP and ensure there was no jobless growth. We're going to get you details and put out in graphics all the salient points of that speech made by President Pranab Mukherjee. But joining me on this live discussion now, our National Affairs Editor Javed Ansari, Senior Journalist T.R. Ramachandran, also political senior journalist and commentator Hartosh Singhbal, also joining me from the National Capital. Hartosh, if I could come to you first, this speech, as unexpected lines, touched upon every expected topic on corruption, on economy, on violence against women, on religious extremism. What to you, Hartosh, were the big takeaways from the President's address?
Shiv, first of all, there is a clearly thought out vision which was articulated in the manifesto, and this is a continuation of the manifesto. There are no major departures. The second is that there is no great ideological departure from the UPA regime, irrespective of certain economists and what they wanted. Poverty alleviation and food security are issues which remain very much on the table. What Modi is really promising us is better delivery, better governance, more efficiency through the mechanism of governance.
Yes.
This is where he claims to be radically departing from the previous regime, and that will be the thrust of what he hopes to achieve.
All right, Mr. Ramachandran, I'd like to bring you in here if you could add to what Hartosh has said. No big ideological departure. What Narendra Modi has, the government has basically promised is how those promises, how that ideology will actually be implemented.
I think you're very right, Shivaru. I don't think you can expect anything dramatic than what the UPA did. In fact, if you ask me, some of the very big ticket programs for the people at large and the amount of sums it involved in terms of thousands of crores is quite phenomenal. I think one of the biggest problems that the UPA government had was actually implementing these schemes and programs on the ground. What I see here is, as Hartosh said, was a repetition of what was contained in the manifesto of the BJP. But there has been some fine-tuning which has been done by Mr. Narendra Modi himself.
Yes.
I think it leaves his imprint in several of the schemes, and one thing which has come out without any ambiguity is the very fact where the President has spoken about his government's program in saying zero tolerance towards religious extremism.
Yes.
Shiv, I say this particularly in the context of what happened to this techie in Pune, where he was virtually bludgeoned to death. And if you remember, on Saturday or Friday, every newspaper in the national capital had an editorial pleading with the Prime Minister to condemn it in the strongest of terms, and to give a warning to the people at large, especially the rightist extremist elements, not to indulge in such activity. Fears and apprehensions have also been expressed by certain political leaders like the NCP chief, Mr. Sharad Pawar and others. I think there are lurking doubts in the minds of the people that, if 2002 happened, let there not be any more programs against any specific minority community. And I think this is an apprehension that this government, especially Mr. Modi, needs to remove from the minds of the people. And I think to that extent, this particular aspect of religious terrorism.
Picking up on that specific issue, Mr. Ramachandran, I want to bring Javed in as well. Javed, is that what this was? Because, in the last 1 or 2 weeks, there have been voices, in the media, commentators, observers, who've said that Narendra Modi, who's been so vocal across a range of issues, has been, conspicuously silent, about, the stories that everyone's really paying attention to at this time. What happened in Badayu, as well as the horrific incident in Pune, the communal incident in Pune. So Is this what has happened, that, that's Modi's voice we're hearing through the president's address on those particular issues, riots, terrorism, religious extremism?
Yeah, that's precisely the case. Perhaps earlier he decided to hold his fire because, that would have meant criticizing the state government. He's a big one for federalism. He's been chief minister thrice. He believes the centre used to ram down things. So therefore he didn't want to be seen as encroaching into the domain of the states.
Yeah.
But here he's used this occasion to send out a loud and clear message to those outside and within who have been trying to foment trouble. And he's bracketed zero tolerance against terrorism with zero tolerance against rioters, against religious extremists, and against crimes against women. So he sent out a forceful message, and this should allay the concerns of those who've been apprehensive, who've had a sense of foreboding about him. He carries a baggage, and he has at least declared his intention to address that particular issue. Now he will be judged in the days to come on how and what he does. But for now, he's said all the right things. He's made that abundantly clear that he will not, and this will have a message for all those those trigger happy people or eager beavers who may want to jump the gun. He's made it very clear that he will not tolerate it, and those who indulge in this will pay a price for it.
Hartosh, how is this likely to be received? This comment on zero tolerance to riots, to religious extremism, how is that likely to be received in the context of, many people looking at Narendra Modi not coming forward and saying anything so far on those things?
No, I think it's the right signal. To put religious extremism, gender violence,
yes,
caste violence on an equivalence footing with the kind of threat terrorism poses, I think is the right kind of recognition of the importance of these issues. But this is just the beginning. The doubts will not go away till we see delivery on the ground, and that's true for a vast range of things.
Yes.
The promises are here, and from now on it is open for everybody to judge the government on how it delivers and what it delivers.
Hartosh,
but the initial signals are right. I mean, there can be no criticism with that.
Hartosh, were there any issues that you either expected or would have liked to see addressed in this speech, laying out the agenda for the Modi government that perhaps were missed or didn't see a mention? Were there any specific issues at all, or was everything covered?
Look, I think the specifics will be answered in the days to come, the budget to come. Obviously, I will have questions when you're talking of high-speed trains, you're talking of issues of land acquisition, problematic issues which have never been dealt with by the Indian state in any successful manner, including the state of Gujarat. How is this to be done? How will this be carried out? But I think those are things that we have to wait for. The details have to be spelled out in the budget in the process by which these programs will be implemented and carried out.
Yes.
So those questions still very much remain, because I think there are problems with this vision, but this is his vision. How this is implemented, that is where the problems lie, and I think we'll be watching that.
All right, we're going to be watching that very closely. Javed, the kind of expectations that have been built up on this particular dispensation, are enormous. I mean, it's commensurate with the mandate that's been given to the Modi Sarkar. What kind of... Just give us a sense of what kind of latitude this government really has. It's now going to be business. In a sense, this is the last real ceremonial before the government actually gets cracking on, moving on this vast vision and agenda that has been set out. Give us a sense of that.
I agree with what my colleague Hartosh Bal was saying. Promises are one thing. You will be judged on what you do and what you don't do.
Yes.
He has a budget session coming up early next month. They'll outline the nuts and bolts will be spelled out, and everything will depend on the delivery mechanism. There's very little difference in the economic policy and other thrust areas. It's just a bit of fine tuning.
Yes.
Now comes the delivery. People, because the expectations are so high, they want immediate solution to problems. Not every solution, not every problem has an immediate solution, but nonetheless, so it'll have a kind of couple of months of honeymoon period. But this quite, there are other things that Modi will have to do, and there's no escape route. One is the question of this 33% reservation for women. This is already one house of parliament, the Rajya Sabha, has already passed it. He now has a majority in the Lok Sabha, so he can't pin the blame on the opposition.
Yes.
He will be tested, his will be tested, whether he can get this measure through. And let me tell you, across party line, most MPs were not in favor when this bill was passed. This was absolutely rammed down people's throats in the Rajya Sabha, much against the wishes of members of the Bharatiya Janata Party themselves. They actually rebelled against Sushma Swaraj and Mr. Arun Jaitley, saying that these leaders had gone and committed harakiri. So he will be tested. These are the, it's one thing to make promises, quite another to implement this, and that's where the challenge will come.
It's implementation is where the government will actually be judged. The specifics will become more and more clear in the days ahead. I just want to play out for you a small excerpt from Pranab Mukherjee's speech where he's talking about governance. We'll come right back to our guests after that.
My government will function on the mantra of minimum government, maximum governance.
The time for those pithy election lines is going to be past now. It's, like Javed just said, it's going to be all about implementation. A minimum government, maximum governance sounds fabulous. It's, it's great for the headlines. But now everybody's going to be watching very closely about just how minimum the government's going to be. Hartosh?
Yeah, of course. No, this is exactly, I mean, once you have promised that the change that you aim to bring is about delivery and efficiency, we have to very soon get into the specifics of how delivery and efficiency is to be delivered. We've already seen that there has been a certain interaction with secretaries of this government.
Yes.
The empowerment of the bureaucracy. And I think people see it in connection with the same aim. Again, to me, it raises questions. It seems to me that secretaries are being empowered beyond the ministers. There is less empowerment of elected representatives, more empowerment of the bureaucracy. Is this necessarily the right solution? Again, we'll find out very soon. But there are changes in the way this government will administer the country, and Modi believes that they will deliver more efficient results. So these are the kind of things we'll be watching from now on, I think.
Okay, so Javed, if I could bring you in on this, what are the specifics going forward? This was really a broad speech that the president has, put out, laying out the broad agenda for this government going forward. The economy, the budget, employment, price rise, these are the I suppose we can call those the specifics on which the government will be judged in the days and the weeks ahead, especially with the budget coming up.
Yeah, I think the first thing will be price rise, inflation, because the BJP made, like all the other opposition parties, a lot of song and dance about inflation and the government's inability to rein in inflation, the government's inability to rein in prices of fuel or diesel. Now, there are a lot of things that the government can do. There are some things they can't. I'm not so sure if even this government can go against the international trend and bring down prices of diesel and petrol.
Yes.
The other thing is inflation, the essential commodities. People might give you 15 days, one month or 2 months at the most. Thereafter, the criticism will start ringing in if Mr. Modi and his new government cannot deliver on that. So price rise is the first and foremost, and of course, although law and order is a state subject, but because any and every incident that happens, whichever corner of the country, given the fact that this government carries a certain baggage, it will be looked at with suspicion, and therefore Mr. Modi, the president said what Mr. Modi wanted him to say on that issue, and now of course it depends on how they go forward in implementing this.
Several different talking points on this speech by the president on the Modi Sarkar's agenda ahead. What stood out for you and for people across the country from the president's address at the joint session of parliament? It was a speech just over 45 minutes to a joint session of parliament where Pranab Mukherjee touched upon a variety of expected issues, but it will be the specifics on which the Modi Sarkar will really be questioned and observed in the days, weeks and months ahead. Let's get you a quick excerpt from that speech. T.R. Ramachandran, our National Affairs Editor, Javed Ansari and senior journalist Hartosh Singh Bal are with me live on this. Hartosh, if I could bring you in, in the fortnight that the government, has been in power, do we have a sense, according to you, Hartosh, of what the challenges really are within the government in the context of what it wants to achieve and what it wants to do?
Look, I think given the mandate, I think the real challenge for this government is the heightened expectation. I mean, a friend of mine was in the metro the other day, the light went off for 10 minutes, there was complete darkness, and 5 people sort of started joking, "Achhe din aa gaye hain." This expectation that Modi will intervene and solve the country's problems within a day or within 2 days is the problem that this government will have to face immediately. Because on issues such as price rise, where some time is needed to see results, I don't know if there is patience to await that kind of result. People will want to see things very soon. And this is what the government has to struggle against immediately.
Mr. Ramachandran, you know, that's an excellent point, you know, and it's actually reached an absurd level, you know, very well put in that example by Hartosh. There's going to be an epic level of impatience right now among citizens to see results quickly. I mean, so high have the promises been, so lofty, you know, has the discourse been during the election campaign, you know, the things said against the UPA government. You know, people are not going to want to sit around and wait for results. They're going to want to see them immediately and tangibly.
I agree with Hartosh 200%, because people are now on a short fuse, having faced the problems for more than 3 years. And the previous government didn't have a clue how to deal with the issue of the price spiral. The price spiral is what people are going to look at the very first instance. And you know, for that, the honeymoon is not going to last you 18 months. After 3 months, I think the people of this country has phenomenal patience. They will give him some time to see how the whole thing works. But 3 months, I think if he's not able to pull up his socks and do something about it, I think he could be in trouble. On the other hand, if you see, the international prices are only firming up. They're not coming down on several fronts. So in the overall analysis, it's a huge test. And let's see if he's
going to have to, you know, prepare to, you know, explain that.
He will have to explain every step of the way.
And God forbid we have a bad monsoon as is predicted.
Then I think you have a bigger problem on the agriculture front. All these schemes on agriculture, providing water, being equal as far as women and citizens are concerned is fine. But let's not forget one thing, Arur. He was earlier, for the last 13, 14 years, dealing with a state called Gujarat, of which he was the chief minister. He is now having to deal with the country as a whole, where no 200 miles are similar. They are entirely different on the ground. So therefore, I think there are weaknesses, and we also have Hindu chauvinist chief ministers. They don't want the women's reservation bill. The Samajwadi Party is a case in point. The RJD is a case in point. You need to bring them around. The advantage that this party has, it has a good, comfortable majority on its own in Parliament, in the Lok Sabha. I think it needs to take advantage of that and get through some of the bills that have been hanging fire for long.
Javed, you know, in your view, how is the Modi, you know, the mandate is, you know, is something that can't be questioned. It's an enormous mandate. But in your view, how is the Modi government going to prepare for this extremely sort of restricted elbow room or maneuvering space they're going to have as far as, you know, delivering results very quickly and visibly?
You know, I think they will caution the people. It also depends a lot on the sagacity and the wisdom and how they go about it. If they seek a confrontationist relationship with the opposition, then, you know, the honeymoon period will evaporate very quickly. But if they continue the way they've started, that will be a good omen. But again, you can caution, you can you know, prepare the people mentally. The fact is that in today's world, people's patience runs out very quickly. So like Ram was saying, maybe 2 months or 3 months is all they have. And if God forbid we have a bad monsoon, then, you know, this is something even Narendra Modi cannot control. But the people, I'm not so sure, will be that forgiving. They will expect dramatic results. And this is where he will be tested. Even if he can deliver 50% of that, if he makes a good beginning, perhaps that honeymoon period will get an extension, or else it will evaporate very quickly.
Well, minimum government, maximum governance is a line that continues to ring as far as the Modi government is concerned. They've been in power for only 2 weeks now, but the manifestation of what that line really means, you know, is going to be something that's going to be held up to the promises that the Modi, Team Modi really made during the election campaign and in the process of government formation. President Pranab Mukherjee mentioned that in his speech as well.